The massive alien ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. It emerged from the darkness of space, its sleek silver hull reflecting Earth's sunlight as it positioned itself in high orbit. World leaders scrambled to their command centers, and military bases worldwide went on high alert. But the ship made no aggressive moves. Instead, it waited. Ambassador Gray stood before the United Nations Security Council, his tall, slender form drawing all eyes in the room. His gray skin and large, dark eyes marked him as clearly non-human, but his diplomatic robes and calm demeanor helped ease the initial tension. "We represent the Galactic Council," he announced in perfect English, his translation device working flawlessly. "We have watched your species for some time, and we believe you are ready for first contact." The human delegates exchanged glances, ready for contact. They had already been exploring Mars for decades and had permanent bases on the Moon. Their quantum computers were processing data at unprecedented speeds, and their energy technology had recently achieved stable fusion power. "We expected to find a primitive species," Gray continued, his large eyes scanning the room. "Your rapid advancement from burning fossil fuels to harnessing fusion energy in just 2 centuries is unprecedented." One of the delegates, Representative Thompson, stepped forward. "With all due respect, Ambassador Gray, we've worked hard to reach this point. Our scientists and engineers have pushed the boundaries of what's possible." Gray's expression remained neutral, but his fingers twitched slightly, a sign of discomfort that went unnoticed by the humans. "Yes, that is precisely what concerns some members of the Council. Your rate of technological advancement, especially in military applications, is exceptional." The room grew quiet. Everyone knew humanity's history of warfare had driven many of their greatest innovations. The space race itself had begun as a military competition. "The Council requires an assessment of your species before considering Earth's membership," Gray explained. "Particularly, we must evaluate your military capabilities and doctrine." General Martinez, representing Earth's United Defense Force, stood up. "We have nothing to hide, Ambassador. Our military exists to protect, not to conquer." Gray's translator took a moment to process this statement. The concept seemed to puzzle him. "Protect. Your military history suggests otherwise. Our preliminary studies show constant warfare throughout your recorded history. And we've learned from every conflict," Martins replied firmly. "Each war taught us not just how to fight better, but why we should avoid fighting when possible. Peace through strength isn't just a saying for us." The ambassador's dark eyes widened slightly. This response was not in any of his briefings. Most species simply focused on showing their military might, not discussing the philosophy behind it. "Very well," Gray finally said. "The Council will send a military observer to conduct a thorough assessment. They will evaluate your capabilities, tactics, and—" He paused, searching for the right word, "philosophy of warfare." As the meeting concluded, Gray returned to his ship. In his private quarters, he recorded his initial report to the Council. First contact with humanity has revealed unexpected complexities. Their military development is deeply intertwined with their overall technological progress. Unlike other species we've encountered, they don't just develop weapons. They constantly evolve their entire approach to warfare. Most concerning is their ability to advance military technology without a unified planetary government. Their competing nations have created a form of military evolution we've never seen before. Recommend careful consideration before proceeding with membership evaluation." He added a personal note. "There's something about them that both terrifies and fascinates me. They speak of peace while maintaining armies, talk of protection while developing weapons that could destroy their own world. Yet somehow, they've survived and thrived. Perhaps that's what makes them so dangerous. They understand the horror of war, yet have mastered its art anyway." The message was sent, traveling faster than light, to the distant Galactic Council. Earth's evaluation would begin soon, and nothing would ever be the same. Military observer Smith arrived on Earth 3 weeks after Ambassador Gray's departure. Unlike Gray's diplomatic appearance, Smith looked like a warrior. His armored suit hummed with advanced technology, and his four eyes constantly scanned his surroundings, missing nothing. "Show me everything," he commanded as General Martinez met him at the United Defense Force headquarters. "The Council wants a complete assessment of human military capabilities." Martinez nodded, hiding his smile. "We'll start with basic training." The first stop was a muddy training ground where soldiers crawled under barbed wire, while live ammunition flew overhead. Smith watched in shock as human recruits dragged themselves through the dirt. "Why do they not use hover units?" he asked. "This seems primitive." "Because hover units can fail," Martinez explained. "Our soldiers must be ready for anything. Technology can break, but the human body and mind can adapt." Smith made notes on his holographic pad, his expression troubled. The next demonstration shocked him even more. A small group of soldiers disabled a tank using only basic tools and improvised explosives. They had no advanced weapons, no energy beams, just simple chemistry and clever thinking. "This is what we call asymmetric warfare," Martinez explained. "Fighting against superior forces by finding creative solutions." Creative. Smith's four eyes blinked rapidly. "This is chaos. There are no standard protocols here." Martinez's expression grew serious. "That's exactly the point. In real combat, things rarely go according to protocol. We train our people to think, not just follow orders." The assessment continued for days. Smith watched urban combat training where soldiers fought room by room, using simple mirrors to check corners. He observed naval exercises where submarines hunted each other in complete silence. But what disturbed him most was the aerial combat demonstration. Two fighter pilots engaged in a dogfight, their jets dancing through the clouds. When one pilot lost his weapon systems, instead of withdrawing as protocol demanded, he maneuvered his aircraft so close to his opponent that the other pilot had to break off or risk collision. "This is madness," Smith exclaimed. "That pilot risked everything. He adapted to the situation." Martinez replied calmly, "In real combat, you use whatever advantage you can find." Later, in the command center, Smith reviewed Earth's military history. The screen showed countless battles where smaller forces had defeated larger ones through strategy and unconventional tactics. Guerrilla warfare, resistance movements, and irregular combat filled the records. "Your species," Smith said slowly, "treats warfare like an art form. You don't just fight wars. You reinvent how wars are fought." Martinez stood beside him, watching the historical footage. "We've had a lot of practice. Each conflict taught us something new. We learned that the biggest army doesn't always win. The smartest one does." In his private quarters that night, Smith prepared his report to the council. His fingers trembled slightly as he recorded. "Humanity's approach to warfare defies all known military doctrine. They deliberately train for equipment failure, forcing reliance on primitive but reliable methods. Their tactics embrace chaos rather than order. Most disturbing is their ability to improvise and adapt during combat, making their responses unpredictable. While their technology lags behind council standards, their strategic thinking surpasses anything in our records. They possess something far more dangerous than advanced weapons. They have endless creativity in how they fight." Recommendation: exercise extreme caution in military engagement with humans. Their apparent technological disadvantage is irrelevant. They will find ways to use our own advantages against us. Most concerning is their ability to think like warriors even in peaceful times. Personal observation: I have never seen anything like this. They train not just for war, but for every possible way a war could be fought. The Council fears humanity's potential for warfare, but we should fear their understanding of it even more. The report went out into space, carrying with it a warning that would change how the Galactic Council viewed humanity forever. The Galactic Council's massive space station looked like a shining metal flower blooming in the darkness of space. Commander Wilson stood at the viewport of the human ship, resilience, watching as hundreds of alien vessels gathered for the annual Galactic War Games. "Look at their ships," his second-in-command, Major Reed, whispered. "They're huge." Wilson nodded. Every alien vessel was at least 3 times bigger than their own. The human ships looked like tiny fish swimming among whales. At the opening ceremony, representatives from 30 different species gathered in the Great Hall. The alien commanders walked past the human delegation, some smirking at their simple uniforms and lack of energy weapons. "The primitives won't last one round," one tall, blue-skinned commander said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Wilson kept his face neutral. Let them underestimate us, he thought. The first challenge was space combat. The human ships faced off against the border fleet, known for their superior technology. As the simulation began, the alien ships launched a massive barrage of energy weapons. But the human ships didn't try to fight back directly. Instead, they scattered, using the debris field from old battles as cover. The alien commanders laughed at what they saw as cowardice. Their laughter stopped when human ships started emerging from behind debris, striking quickly and disappearing again. The border fleet's big ships couldn't turn fast enough to track them. "Impossible," the border fleet commander shouted as his flagship's systems reported critical damage from multiple hits. "They're using the garbage as weapons." Wilson's team had attached simple propulsion units to pieces of debris, turning them into improvised missiles. It wasn't advanced technology, just basic physics and clever thinking. The second challenge was ground combat. Each team had to capture and hold a fortified position. The other species marched forward with energy shields and plasma rifles, following standard assault protocols. The humans did something different. They split into small teams, used smoke to hide their movements, and attacked from unexpected angles. While the aliens looked for a main assault force, humans slipped through their defenses in small groups. "This isn't proper military doctrine," one alien observer protested. "No," Wilson agreed, watching his troops secure their objective. "It's better." But the final challenge shocked everyone. Teams had to survive on a hostile planet with minimal equipment. The alien teams set up elaborate bases with their advanced technology. The humans dug trenches. What are they doing? The aliens wondered. Why don't they build proper defenses? They found out when the planet's massive storms hit. The alien bases, despite their advanced shields, were damaged by the fierce winds. But the human trenches, based on designs from old Earth wars, held firm. Sometimes the old ways work best, Wilson explained to the stunned observers. Our ancestors figured this out through centuries of warfare. In the end, humanity didn't win every contest, but they shocked everyone with their performance. The council representatives huddled in worried groups, discussing what they'd seen. That evening, Wilson found a message waiting in his quarters. It was from Ambassador Gray. "Commander, your performance in the war games has caused quite a stir. Some council members are terrified of what humanity might become with access to advanced technology. Others are fascinated by your innovative approaches, but all agree on one thing. Humanity doesn't just participate in warfare, you transform it. The council has never seen a species that can take such simple tools and use them in such unexpected ways. Your real weapon isn't your technology or even your tactics. It's your way of thinking. You will receive a formal invitation tomorrow. The council wants to discuss possibilities." Wilson smiled as he read the message. Humanity had proved itself not by having the best weapons, but by showing they didn't need them to be dangerous. Sometimes, he thought, the simplest solutions were the most frightening of all. The emergency alert woke Captain Rogers at midnight. The Galactic Council's message was brief but urgent. The swarm has attacked Mining Colony 7. All standard defenses have failed, requesting immediate human assistance. Rogers smiled grimly as he read the message. The mighty council, with all their advanced technology, was asking for help from the primitives. "Wake up the team," he ordered through the ship's comm system. "We've got work to do." The swarm was exactly what their name suggested. billions of insect-like aliens that attacked in massive groups. They had already destroyed the colony's outer defenses when Roger's small team arrived in their single ship. "That's it?" the colony's governor asked, his three eyes blinking in disbelief. "The council sent one small human vessel." "That's all we need," Rogers replied, studying the colony's layout on a holographic display. "Tell me everything about these bugs." The governor explained how the swarm had easily overcome their energy shields and automated defense systems. Their sheer numbers made traditional defenses useless. "Has anyone tried talking to them?" Rogers asked. The governor stared at him. "They're insects. They don't talk. Everything communicates somehow," Rogers said. "We just need to find out how." While other council ships continued their failed attacks against the swarm's main force, Rogers' team worked differently. They set up simple observation posts and watched the swarm's behavior. "Look at that," Rogers pointed to a recording. "They always attack in the same pattern. It's like a dance." His science officer nodded. "Their movements create vibrations in the ground. They're using those vibrations to coordinate their attacks." Rogers grinned. "Then let's give them something new to dance to." The team set up dozens of simple vibration generators around the colony. The devices weren't advanced technology, just basic motors turning unbalanced weights. But when activated, they created chaos in the swarm's ranks. "The bugs are confused," one of Rogers' team reported. "Their formations are breaking up." But Rogers wasn't done. While the swarm was disorganized, his team released thousands of small drones. Not weapons, just simple devices that mimicked the swarm's communication patterns. "Now they're really lost," Rogers said, watching the aliens scatter. "They can't tell which signals to follow." The council ships watched in amazement as the mighty swarm fell into confusion. Some groups started fighting each other, unable to distinguish friend from foe. Others retreated, their coordination completely disrupted. "This is impossible," the governor said. "You defeated them without destroying them." "Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make sure it never happens," Rogers replied. "We just needed to understand how they think." Later, in his report to both Earth Command and the Council, Rogers wrote, "The swarm's greatest strength, their unity, became their weakness once we understood it. While the Council focused on trying to destroy them, we focused on disrupting their ability to work together. This victory wasn't achieved through superior firepower, but through observation and adaptation. More importantly, we've opened possibilities for communication with the swarm. The patterns we discovered might be the key to actual diplomatic contact. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to turn them into an ally." The council representatives read his report in stunned silence. One of them finally spoke. "They didn't just defeat the swarm. They found a way to potentially make peace with them." "How can a species so good at warfare also understand peace so well?" Ambassador Gray, standing quietly in the corner, answered. "Because they learned the hardest lesson of all. The true purpose of understanding warfare isn't to win fights, but to prevent them." The council chambers erupted in debate. Humanity had proven themselves again, but not in the way anyone expected. They hadn't just solved a military crisis. They'd transformed it into a diplomatic opportunity. 2 months after the swarm incident, Captain Rogers found himself in an unusual position, teaching alien soldiers how to think like humans. The Council had converted an entire space station into a training facility, and representatives from 20 different species filled the classroom. "The first rule of adaptation," Rogers explained, pointing to a simple diagram, "is to forget everything you think you know about warfare." A tall reptilian officer raised his hand. "But our species has fought wars for thousands of years." "Fighting wars isn't the same as understanding warfare," Rogers replied. "Watch this." He played a video from Earth's history, a small group of fighters using simple tools to disable a modern tank. The aliens watched in silence as the tank's crew abandoned their disabled vehicle. "They didn't destroy the tank," Rogers explained. "They just made it useless. Sometimes that's enough." In another part of the station, Major Reed was teaching environmental adaptation. She led a group of alien soldiers through a simulated jungle environment. "Your fancy armor is heavy and noisy," she told them. "Sometimes simple cloth and good training work better." The aliens struggled to move quietly through the dense vegetation. Their advanced technology, designed for open combat, actually hindered them in the jungle. "But this is primitive," one of them protested. "Primitive doesn't mean ineffective," Reed answered. "The jungle doesn't care how advanced your weapons are." Meanwhile, Commander Wilson was meeting with the Council's military leadership. The holograms showed multiple sectors where the swarm had been pushed back using human tactics. "Your methods are disturbing," one council leader admitted. "But they work. The swarm never expects such simple strategies." Wilson nodded. "That's because they think like you do, always expecting high-tech solutions. Sometimes a rock thrown at the right moment is better than a plasma cannon." The council members shifted uncomfortably. One of them spoke up. "We've discovered something interesting. Some of the swarm groups exposed to your communication techniques have started responding differently. They're attempting to communicate back. That's what happens when you try to understand your enemy instead of just destroying them," Wilson said. "Every species, no matter how alien, has patterns we can learn from." Back in the training areas, the alien soldiers were beginning to understand. They learned to use terrain to their advantage, to improvise with limited resources, and most importantly, to think creatively. "Your species fights like water," a crystalline alien told Rogers during a break. "You flow around obstacles instead of smashing through them." Rogers smiled. "That's because we learned warfare the hard way. By being the weaker side many times in our history, we had to become smart to survive." The training program's success led to an unexpected development. Other species started incorporating human military doctrine into their own forces. The Council's armies began to transform. Ambassador Gray watched all this with growing interest. In his private quarters, he recorded his observations. "The human influence on galactic warfare is spreading faster than anyone expected. They're not just teaching tactics. They're teaching a whole new way of thinking. Their greatest weapon was never their technology or even their strategies. It's their ability to adapt and help others adapt." Most concerning to some council members is how the humans keep finding peaceful solutions through military means. They don't just win conflicts, they transform them. The swarm situation proved this. While we saw only an enemy to be destroyed, they saw an opportunity to understand. Perhaps this is why we fear them so much. They show us that everything we thought we knew about warfare might be wrong. And if we're wrong about warfare, what else might we be wrong about? The station's lights dimmed into night cycle, but the training continued. In simulators and classrooms across the facility, a revolution in military thinking was spreading, one lesson at a time. Deep in the Galactic Council's archives, Ambassador Gray and Commander Wilson stood before a massive holographic display. It showed the evolutionary histories of every known spacefaring species. "Look at this pattern," Gray said, pointing to various alien species histories. "Every other species had long periods of peace between their conflicts. But humans," he gestured to Earth's timeline. Wilson nodded slowly. "We never stopped. Even in times of peace, we prepared for war." The archive's AI displayed humanity's military history. Unlike other species who developed weapons only when needed, humans had continuously invented new ways to fight. From sticks and stones to nuclear weapons, the progression never ceased. "This is what terrifies the Council," Gray explained. "Other species evolved through cooperation. Humans evolved through constant competition." The display showed ancient battles, medieval wars, modern conflicts, and finally, the space age. Each era brought new tactics, new strategies, and new ways of thinking about warfare. "But that's not what truly frightens them," Gray continued, touching another control. "This is." The screen filled with Earth's military libraries. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Clausewitz's On War, Countless books, essays, and studies about warfare stretched across human history. You don't just fight wars, Gray said quietly. You study them. You learn from them. You turn warfare into a science and an art at the same time. Wilson walked closer to the display. Every conflict taught us something. Every war showed us what worked and what didn't. Exactly, Gray replied. Other species only think about warfare during actual conflicts. Humans think about it constantly. You analyze past battles, plan for future ones, and train even in times of peace. The archive showed military academies, training centers, and war colleges from Earth. Places where humans studied warfare not just as a necessity, but as a field of knowledge. Here's what convinced the Council that humans were different, Gray said, bringing up another display. It showed the aftermath of Earth's wars, the treaties, the peace negotiations, and the rebuilding efforts. We learn from our mistakes, Wilson said. Each war taught us not just how to fight better, but why we should avoid fighting when possible. That's what makes humans unique, Gray agreed. You understand both the art of warfare and the importance of peace. Other species choose one or the other. Humans master both. The archive's final display showed Earth's current military doctrine, a complex mixture of preparedness and diplomacy, strength and restraint, capability and responsibility. Gray turned to Wilson. The Council has been studying your species since before first contact. They found something remarkable. Every other species that reached this level of military understanding either destroyed themselves or became conquerors. But humans, we learned to balance power with wisdom, Wilson finished. Yes, Gray said. And that's what truly terrifies the Council. Not just your capability for warfare, but your deep understanding of when to use it and when to seek peace. Later that night, Wilson wrote in his personal log, "Today I understood why the Council fears us. It's not our weapons or our tactics that frighten them. It's our relationship with warfare itself. We didn't just survive our violent history. We learned from it. We turned our greatest weakness into our greatest strength." The archives showed me something else too. The Council species achieved peace by avoiding conflict. We achieved it by understanding conflict. They see warfare as something to be eliminated. We see it as something to be understood so it can be prevented. Maybe that's why they need us now. In a galaxy where new threats like the swarm exist, avoiding conflict isn't enough. You need to understand it. And nobody understands warfare, both its power and its cost, better than humanity. The archives continued their silent display, telling the story of a species that learned not just how to fight, but when to fight, why to fight, and most importantly, how to prevent fighting altogether. The Grand Council chamber was silent as Council President Stone stood at the podium. Representatives from every spacefaring species filled the massive room. At the center, the human delegation waited calmly. For the first time in Council history, Stone announced, "We are creating a new position, Director of Galactic Defense and Peace Operations." The chamber erupted in murmurs as Stone continued, and for the first time, this position will be held by a representative from our newest member species, humanity. Commander Wilson stepped forward. His simple uniform stood out among the elaborate robes and armor of the alien representatives. Some council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. 6 months ago, Wilson began, many of you feared humanity's approach to warfare. Today, those same methods have pushed back the swarm, strengthened our defenses, and opened new paths to peace. The holographic displays showed the results. Successful operations against pirates, peaceful negotiations with previously hostile species, and new training programs spreading across the galaxy. Humanity's greatest contribution wasn't teaching us how to fight better, Ambassador Gray added, standing beside Wilson. It was teaching us how to understand conflict itself. A reptilian council member rose. But what about the risks? Humans still frighten us. Their minds are always ready for war. Exactly, Wilson replied. We stay ready so we don't have to fight. But when we must fight, We know how. That's the balance the galaxy needs. The displays showed the new defense doctrine being implemented across Council space. Small, adaptable units replaced massive fleets. Diplomats worked alongside soldiers. Understanding an enemy became as important as defeating them. Look at the swarm situation, Wilson continued. We didn't just drive them back. We're now in peace talks with them. Understanding their communication methods led to dialogue, not just conflict. Stone raised his hand for silence. This is why we need humanity. Their fear of war made them masters of both conflict and peace. They know the price of warfare better than any of us. In the following hours, Wilson outlined the new galactic defense strategy. Every species would contribute what they did best. The Council's advanced technology would combine with human tactical thinking. Together, they would create something new. We're not here to make the galaxy more warlike, Wilson explained. We're here to make it more peaceful by being better prepared. Real peace comes from strength and understanding, not just the absence of conflict. The changes spread quickly across Council space. Training centers taught both combat skills and conflict resolution. Military units learned to adapt and think creatively. Diplomatic teams studied warfare to better understand how to prevent it. Species began working together, combining their different strengths. Later that evening, in his private quarters, Wilson found a message from Earth's government. You've done something unprecedented. You've taken humanity's darkest history, our constant warfare, and turned it into the galaxy's greatest hope for peace. The Council feared our understanding of war, but now they see it as necessary knowledge for maintaining peace. Ambassador Gray visited Wilson as he finished reading the message. Do you know what the Council whispers now? Gray asked. They say they fear humanity's warfare capabilities less than they fear the thought of facing the galaxy without humanity's help. Wilson smiled. Fear can become respect when understood properly, just like warfare can lead to peace when used wisely. The galaxy is changing, Gray said. And humanity, the species we once feared, is leading us towards something better, a peace protected by understanding, not just by force. As the station's lights dimmed, Wilson watched the stars through his viewport. Somewhere out there, former enemies were becoming allies, soldiers were learning to be peacekeepers, and the galaxy was learning that the best way to prevent a war was to truly understand it. The Council's greatest fear had become its greatest strength, and humanity's long history of warfare had finally found its true purpose, teaching the galaxy how to maintain peace.